I'm Richard Gearhart, an intellectual property attorney specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Elizabeth Gearhart, not an attorney, but I do the marketing for Gearhart Law and I have my own startup.
Welcome everybody to Passage to Profit, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk about small businesses, entrepreneurism, and the intellectual property that helps them flourish. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Merit Kahn. She's the CEO of SELLect Sales Development and a certified emotional intelligence expert. And she's also a stand-up comedian too.
This is going to be fun. And then we have Chris Ciabarra with Athena Security. And this is next level. You guys, if you want to know what the world's going to look like in a year with the security, listen up. And then we have Scott Van Rixel. Now, this is so cool. I'm not going to say too much about it, but it has to do with food. So stay tuned. You want to hear these guys.
That sounds great. But before we get to our distinguished guests, who it's time for IP in the news. And who do we have on the chopping block this evening?
Well, Apple. So most people think of Apple as a tech company, but they do consumer products too. But they have a new product that is near and dear to my heart. I'm hoping it's out and manufactured by the next time we go on a long flight. It is a wearable electronic device. It's a sleep mask, but you could play your music through your sleep mask. It has bone conduction technology, so you don't have to use your microphone or your headphones anymore. And it can also monitor different things, which I don't know if I like that part.
Yeah, monitoring your sleep. Yeah.
But it's pretty cool because you could put it on and have your music and it's all in one place.
Well, that is pretty cool. What I do like about it from the pictures is that you can roll over on your side, right? So whenever I try to like lay down and I have my earbuds in, I roll over on my side and it's like the earbud gets like shoved into my ear and it becomes very uncomfortable. So I like that part of it too. And also, I like a dark environment where I sleep, and this is very, very conducive to that. So you can, put your blinders on and sleep anywhere.
Right. So the patent issued yesterday. We're taping this on March 30th, 2022. It issued yesterday. So I'm really hoping
you are so on top of it. That's very timely.
Luck. So to all of you entrepreneurs out there, to people who say everything that could be created under the sun has been created, not true. People are still getting patents on new products. And if you can mix tech and consumer products together, there's a whole lot that you can do. So keep inventing.
Right. And, there was even a commissioner of the patent office that once said back in the 1800s that everything that has been invented has already been invented, so that there was no new technology out there. And,
he said that too.
he was wrong. I mean, he just completely blew it on that one. So
keep inventing, everybody. We love these new products.
Anyway, it's time for Richard's Roundtable, where we give our guests a chance to comment on what they just heard or ask any other intellectual property question that comes to mind. So our first guest is Merit Kahn. And Merit, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. What do you think about? Yeah. What do you think about the last comment you heard?
Well, I'm a little nervous about that. It's possible that I'm a little too skeptical, but my first thought is, it sounds great because I love to listen to things before I go to sleep. The boring podcast, not this one, but other one. I like to nod off to sleep. But now I'm wondering, if they can tell what stage of REM we are in, what, the next level is, well, there's going to be an advertising message that's going to go directly into your brain when you're in the most vulnerable part of your sleep. And I'm going to wake up I don't know why I need to travel to Zimbabwe, but I have to buy a ticket.
I'm in the mood to buy a new car. I don't.
Who knew? I need another device. So I'm gonna be in the camp of just a little bit afraid of that for now.
Yeah, I don't blame you because I'm on the same side you are. They had me until they started talking about monitoring things, and there's all sorts of things that happen in bed that you don't necessarily want monitored. And
I don't know what you're doing at that point. So
but I have a Garmin watch, and it tracks my sleep. and sometimes I like it, but I know it's all being sent back to the servers at Google or Amazon, and somebody's selling that information, and it's discomforting to know. But on the other hand, it's kind of cool to see how much sleep you got. So I didn't bring that up because it's like they're already doing it, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah.
Right. So let's go on to the next person. Who's next?
Who's next? So Chris, what is your take on all this?
So my take is Apple comes from a line of history that they like to keep people's privacy. If you look at the way they do things, they're one of the best companies out there to help you keep your privacy. The iPhone itself is probably the most secure phone that's on the market. If you're building apps, you'll understand the privacy. They actually take a look at every single app and make sure that it's not taking information. They give you all the different kinds of warnings from a consumer standpoint. So the fact that they're coming out with this product, I mean, it seems pretty cool to me.
So you're not worried that somebody's going to be tracking your sleep?
He does have a security company. That's what he does.
Oh, so you would know. Okay.
So he knows better than the rest of us.
Well, that's kind of comforting to hear, because I mean, you do hear about big data, right? And that's where the money is, right? So they have to be collecting this, data from someplace. And so if they're not getting our sleep data, that's great. And maybe it's just Apple, but I just think that there's a general fear about that. So what do you think about that?
Fear comes from the unknown.
Uh-huh.
So if people understood the technologies, I think they would be less fearful. It's the fact that they don't understand what's going on. What's the data going back and forth? Well, you can be guaranteed that people will take it apart and make sure that the data going back and forth is only what you want to be going back and forth. And that's what people do for a living, right? They'll take apart different technologies and see what actually is happening in the background, and they'll report on it. If Apple did that kind of stuff, you would know, trust me.
Well, that's comforting, and I appreciate the input. So maybe I will buy these if they become available.
Okay, who's next?
Kenya, of course.
So I'm just curious to know, I'm sure they're a smart company and they've done a lot of market research, but I wonder how many people actually wear masks to go to sleep. I'm not one of those people because I feel like I don't like to sleep with anything on my face, and I would probably wake up very startled. So I'm just curious to know how much data they have on actual mask wearers, and if that is the best, device or feature in terms of like allowing people to listen to music comfortably while they sleep. Because I just don't think there'd be a lot of people who'd want to wear a mask, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, after what we just went through with COVID, maybe you're right.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
You're worried somebody's going to come into your room at night, right, and
Well,
scare you.
I
But
could see it for the airplane, though. Definitely.
oh yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
There's a market
and
there.
other places like that, maybe not every night to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably adjust it so it just goes over your head and doesn't necessarily have to go over your eyes. Maybe but I mean, you bring up a good point.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Apple
Yeah.
is so big that usually they only invest in things that have mass market appeal, and you really wonder if they would invest in a kind of tiny niche product like this. So,
Mhm.
so that's a really good point. I mean, if I were going to face a firing squad, I would like to have that kind of blindfold where I could listen to my favorite tunes before I go. So it could have applicability in third world countries or something. But anyway, Scott, what are your thoughts?
I think the big difference between the mask and, let's say, your Garmin watch is the Garmin watch is really only able to monitor your heart rate, maybe your blood oxygen level, versus something that actually has a direct ability to feed back to you via your ears, what you can hear. Your Garmin's not able to talk to you in the way that you would have something on your head. And the other thing is being able to track eye movements is something your Garmin watch isn't doing. And there's a lot of psychiatry and that, let's say, biofeedback from your eye movements. So I think, there's a big difference between something keeping your heart rate and something that can not only keep your heart rate, but then talk to you while you're in a altered state of being asleep. So and I do think there is a big market for eye masks. I mean, there's walk into Bed Bath and Beyond, and there's, you know, a pretty big section of them for sale. I don't have any of the Talk 2 units in my house because for that very reason is when you're asleep, you're in a very easily manipulated state.
Well, I think I read or I dreamed this, I don't know, that they could actually adjust the music you're listening to based on trying to help you sleep better. And I mean, if that happens, then you really are under someone else's control.
Well, yeah, that's my point. I mean, your watch, having something that monitors your heart rate, I think actually is a good thing. It is good for people to understand, am I getting good sleep? Someone else making what fundamentally are medical decisions of manipulating your sleep state, that's where you start to get into a little bit of, you know,
right. That's where
concern.
it gets a little bit scary. And, you know, but anyway, it's an interesting
I
concept.
may try it anyway.
And yeah, you
I
have
don't think
been
I could
having
get any
trouble
more
I do
sleep
like the
after
idea
they
for the
have-
plane, but
Yeah.
you know,
But
but then you
bring
have
up some-
Wi-Fi connection.
You bring up some interesting points, Scott, and I really like the way that you point out that the REM movement and all the other information that they could get, and then, you know, potentially do something positive with that, right? As long as it's private, I'm on board.
Well, I did.
Yeah, I
read
do
some-
agree. If it goes into it's not attached to you as a person, it's just data and it's
Right.
research data, that's great. But like a medical sleep, you know, when you go in for sleep monitoring, if you have apnea, that's a medical clinical study.
Right.
And your data is attached to you. If it's just arbitrary, that's a very different thing.
Right. And that's under the care of a physician who has years of experience and training. You know, I mean, if they're attaching this to your head and
Well, it's like
pumping it-
biofeedback, but you
Yeah.
usually don't do biofeedback with some random program. James. You wanna
And it's
know
under
who's
the
doing it.
direction of a doctor.
Yeah.
That's the most important part is that there's not going to be a doctor monitoring you.
So if
Right.
they could train me to eat less using this method, I'm on board. So
Okay. well,
anyway,
let's get to the show.
it's time to get to the show. Thank you, everyone. That was really a great discussion. And we have with us Merit Kahn, who is the CEO of SELLect Sales Development, and she's a certified emotional intelligence expert. And I definitely want to hear about that. And she's also a stand-up comedian too. She was telling us before the show that she played to a full house last night
Right.
in Colorado. So
And she teaches you how to do sales. So I guess she knows how to do sales if she's filling up the house, right?
So welcome to
I
the
like
show, Merit. And so tell us about your company.
My company is called SELLect Sales Development, and we spell it SELLect, but we really want people to stop selling and start getting selected. See how we did that there?
That was very clever.
Thank you. Thank you. We're very excited about that. But, you know, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs. We also work with big, you know, multinational or international brands. And we teach a process we call the Open for Business framework. And it's really based on 3 key components. So mindset, what you think; mechanics, what you say; motion, what you do. And I would argue that anything that you do in life is going to come down to being successful in these 3 areas. You know, some people just are the go-getters and they're constantly in action, but if you're not saying the right things, it's not going to work out. Or you won't get into action if you fundamentally believe that things can't get any better than they are. So why would I bother, right? So you have to work on mindset. And that's really what we do. We help entrepreneurs specifically who are very good at what they do, but they just think business development should be a little bit easier and they're frustrated. So we give them the words and we work on their plan and get their mind right.
So what did Gary Vee say about business development when you were listening this morning?
He didn't, well, he just said that if you want to be successful, you have to work hard.
Yeah,
That was like
so
the thing. It says,
just
if you
what
want
she
to be a
said.
billionaire, you have to work from 5 a.m. to midnight, 7 days a week from the time you're 20 to 30 years old. That's what he said, which I missed the boat on a long time ago. But there's probably some truth to that. But Gary Vee also uses good words, right? And so what are like some of the, like, how you say something is sometimes very important. So what do you tell entrepreneurs? What are the right things to say?
Well, I happen to believe that there are 4 magic words that really transform just about any conversation. And if you're open to it, I'd be more than happy to share them with you.
Of
Think
course.
that-
I want to hear.
We're open as
That
can
was a
be.
little bit of a trick question. I actually just shared them.
Oh, if you're
Just
open.
like, are you open to? And if you are watching us, you can see there's always a pillow in my background that reminds people, are you open to what I'm having to share with you? But it also reminds me, because I'm looking at my Zoom screen every day, or Google, or whatever hangout area you're on. And I'm always looking at, reminding myself, am I open to what everybody else is sharing? But really the main message is, a closed mind never buys. And so the very first step of a closed sale is always an open mind.
Wow.
I think that's important. When clients call Gearhart Law, the first question that I ask is, well, how can I help you? What do you need? What do you want? And I listen to them until I understand what they're talking about. And I listen with an open mind. I don't judge their project or them personally or anything else. And then out of that, we can start brainstorming some solutions to their issues. And that's really, that's my sales pitch. And I say, I say, come back later if you want to talk about it some more. And that's it, so.
Well, we can work on that, Richard, but I think it's a good start. Good start. But I do think that there is a very big distinction between, are you interested in and are you open to? And if you think about it, in fact, there was a study that was done out of Pepperdine University a number of years ago, and they asked people, would you consider yourself more open-minded than the average? And 95% of respondents said yes. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm not really a math person. Maybe that works in new math, but back in the old days when I learned math, 95% of us cannot be better than the average. So just call me crazy. But what we learn from that is that we want to identify, most people want to identify as somebody who is open-minded. And so if I ask you, are you interested in learning about our sales training programs? It's pretty easy for you to say no, because it has no impact on who you are as a human being. But if I say, are you open to learning a little bit about how we've helped people and to see if it's a good match, it's harder for you to say no to that, because now I'm asking about something that's personal to your identity. And so yeah.
So that's where your emotional intelligence expertise comes in, right? Like you can kind
I think so.
Yeah,
I'd like to think so.
Yeah, I mean, but words are so important. And I want to go back to something you said at the very beginning, because this is something my business coach always tells me every time we talk. She's like, you have to work on what you're saying to yourself. You have to work on your self-speak. You have to know you can do this. You know, that's where it starts. That's really where it starts, is your self-speak. And that is like the first step in your program, right? When you work with people.
It is. And we really believe strongly in the importance of a strong sales mindset, leadership mindset, success mindset, fill in the blank, but really mindset is the first piece of the puzzle. Now, what's tricky is it sounds great to be like, oh yeah, I'm working on my mindset. What does that mean? Like, how exactly do I do that? Is that just like affirmations in my mirror, writing stuff down, like changing automatic thoughts in my head? Like I personally needed something more specific. So I think there are 3 parts of a strong mindset, and we break them down this way. There's your internal mind. That is what you say to yourself. So we do a beliefs inventory. Let's look at what you believe about money, about high-level decision makers, about your offers, about you know, what is an appropriate amount of money, what you think you're worth, right? Like those kinds of sales things about
I'm
belief.
taking notes here, by the way. So
Okay, good.
pull over to the side
so-
of the road and write it down if you're driving. So
yeah, please pull over. So internal mindset is what you say to yourself. Then there's your behavioral mindset. Think about that in terms of what your actions say to other people. And a good way to understand how you're wired from a behavioral standpoint is one of the many behavioral assessments there are in the marketplace. We haven't cornered the market on that, but many people have been exposed to DISC profiles as an example. And those are really the gold standard. And there's many iterations. There's what animal are you? What color are you? What shape are you? But essentially there's 4 types of behavioral styles. We all kind of have a primary type that we are most wired to behave in that frame. And when we understand what that is for ourselves, we can adjust. If we don't understand it, we're kind of at the mercy of it. So that's the second piece, behavioral mind, what your actions say to others. And the third piece of the puzzle is your emotional mind. And if you think about that in terms of what your emotions, the way that your emotions have you interact with others, that's incredibly important, because can I just give you a quick example? I don't want
yes,
to
I'm open to that.
Okay.
He's open to that.
So here's a good example. Couple of years ago, when lots of things changed in the world, it was very difficult for salespeople to know what to do. How do I act now? Is it appropriate to be making business development calls? Should I stop? There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of change. So there were people that were wired with high empathy and low assertiveness. Those are 2 emotional intelligence attributes we can assess for. And if you were wired like that, your call might be, hey, I'm just checking in. I know everything's crazy. How are you? Now, even if you had a good offer that could help somebody, you wouldn't say it, because your empathy for what they might be going through is high and your assertiveness is low. Now, if you flip it and your assertiveness is high and your empathy for others is low, you're going to be that jerk that calls and says, hey, can I, if I could show you a way that blah, blah, blah could solve your problems, right? That's just, it's too aggressive. And it showed a complete lack of understanding of what people were dealing with. So that guy wasn't getting any business. What you want is a balance. So what that sounded like in real language is, hey, I know things are crazy out there. I wanted to first check in on you. I know we can't solve all of the world's problems right now, but if you're open to it, can we have a conversation about how we might be able to work with you to eliminate one of the stresses that you're dealing with? And so it's empathy for others, but assertiveness with my own solutions. And that's a good example of how understanding how your own emotional mindset can support you or sabotage you without you even knowing it. That's what it's all about.
Wow, that's interesting.
I've never actually heard it put that way before, like in such concrete terms. So do you hold training sessions for individuals and corporations and entrepreneurs and the whole?
Yeah. Yes, we
gamut?
do. So a lot of times how it works is I go and I do a keynote at a large conference, and I sort of open people's minds to new possibilities, explain the framework. And then oftentimes companies will bring me in to work with their entire sales team, director of sales, et cetera. And we look at what are the structures that are in place today, and then where are the small tweaks that we need to make. When I'm working with an entrepreneur, they really appreciate being able to join our virtual programs where they're interacting with other entrepreneurs just like them, real go-getters. We screen out very, very deliberately all the know-it-alls, because people aren't we don't want to work with them. They're just too exhausting. So you've got to be open-minded to come to our programs to learn about how to open other people's minds. That's the key.
Yeah,
So,
I love
yeah.
it. I've been at presentations where somebody in the audience is saying, yeah, but have you ever thought about this? And then they tell, like they're teaching the audience. about it.
I'm
And you're
like,
just like,
you have any idea how much they paid me to be here to talk to you guys right now? So
yeah, so
So I'm curious about the assertiveness scale. So, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10 compared to other types of people, where do you think salespeople fall within that scale? Is that a learned behavior, or is that something that people work on?
I think what I love about emotional intelligence tools and assessments is that it really is something that you can develop and change. It can grow. It tends to grow. Your emotional intelligence levels tend to grow over time. As you would expect, you have more experiences. You've learned different coping mechanisms and how to minimize your stress and your automatic trigger responses, hopefully. But it's not assertiveness in and of itself is not necessarily one of the top 5 for top performing salespeople based on the research that I've seen. But it is important. So what I like to remind people is it's interesting to note where your levels are in each individual attribute. But where the real magic is in the relationships between those emotional intelligence attributes, which is why I really think it's important to choose the right assessment tool as a starting point, but also the person who's helping you see what these results really mean. You have to have somebody who understands the nuances of the role that you're in. So I would be a terrible, while I'm very good at emotional intelligence coaching and training for sales and leaders, I'm probably not suited to work with somebody in, I don't know, some other role. But because I understand sales and leadership minds so well, and have been working in that space for more than 20 years, I can look at how they are wired and pick out the combinations that will make the biggest difference for them in achieving the result that they want in sales and leadership. So that's going to be an important piece of the puzzle. It's not just what the report says, it's how you interpret the data through the lens of reality that you're working in and the results that you want to achieve.
that's really powerful. So it's the stuff you didn't learn in school, but I know Kenya has got to have a comment on this.
Oh, yeah, and I do. It's so interesting and great information. Just curious, you had mentioned like characteristics of top performers. Can you share some of those? And I just was also wondering how you've used being a comedian to kind of come into being this emotional intelligence expert.
Those are 2 good questions. So the top 5 emotional intelligence attributes for sales professionals are self-actualization. That's really understanding who you are, really seeing yourself with, like, I'm happy with who I'm at, where I'm at, but I also know I have potential and growth mindset. I can do more. Independence is another one. That's like, I can take in information and counsel from outside sources, but at the end of the day, I rely on my own independent thinking to make decisions and choose a direction. Self-regard is another one. That's very distinct from self-esteem. So self-esteem is something you get from the outside in. Like last night when people said, "Oh, you did a great job. That was really funny." That helped my self-esteem. But self-regard emanates from the inside out. That's how I feel about my own set, how I feel about my own performance. So that's that inner confidence. Optimism is another one high on the list. That's being able to see things working out. If you are more wired for reality testing, or you're the person that plays devil's advocate, like, let me point out all the bad things that could go wrong. Like, that's important. You want to see the obstacles in your path, but ultimately it's very difficult to get into action on any agenda if all you see are the obstacles. You want to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then assertiveness, if I'm honest, is probably number 5 on the list. So you really do need to be able to assert your solutions as a good fit. But I want to balance that out with being able to ask good questions, because again, if I don't understand what the prospect is really challenged with, and I'm just asserting my solutions, it's going to come across as aggressive. And so to make sure you don't cross that line, you really want to be well versed in making sure you understand what the issues are for the other person that you're interacting with.
Yeah, well, that
I
sounds
think
great.
you also asked about comedy. So if I could I'll just
Yeah.
sprinkle a little bit of that one in. It's interesting because I started studying stand-up comedy in 2014, specifically because I wanted to be funnier in my keynote and training programs. And what happened was I couldn't imagine it, but I ended up really liking just the pure comedy of it. So I do both, but I find it interesting because what I have learned in both very different domains is read your audience, like read the room, don't step over whatever needs to be said in that space. And also, people, when they're lightened up, when they're laughing, that's when the messages really can be received. And so there's a strategic reason I build a lot of humor into any of my training programs, because it's in that mindset that people really will get the lessons. They'll remember them when I talk about them inside of a humorous context.
I agree 100%. And I just want to go back to something you said about the optimism, because I worked with somebody and trying to do a website, whatever. Everybody was garbage. Like, nah, this guy's no good. Nah, that guy's no good. And it made me stuck. Like, you cannot move forward if you have somebody that you're listening to who's shooting down every single proposal that comes up from every single person. So I don't work with that person anymore on my website. It's just like that. You're never going to be satisfied. And I'm optimistic that I can trust this person and work with them. So I think optimism is, for me anyway, is a very important thing to have.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And I'm wired like that too. I'm very high optimist, but full disclosure, reality testing is not one of my strong suits. I've really had to pay attention to that and work on that, because what that shows up, it shows up everywhere for me. It could be getting somewhere on time, and I'm optimistic that in rush hour in Denver there won't be traffic. Well, that's kind of stupid, actually. That's a complete lack of reality. So it shows up in how I plan my route to get somewhere, and it shows up in everything. As a client or a prospect says, Merit, we love what you're talking about. Your program sounds amazing. It's like, sounds like a great fit. And all I hear is, great, we're going to get this done. But learning that I'm not naturally wired as high in reality testing as I am in optimism, I force myself to say some of the questions that I teach my own clients, which is, I appreciate that you're excited. I love your enthusiasm. I'm just curious if there was something that you weren't as enthusiastic about. I'd really love to know what that is, if there's any potential obstacles that we should talk about. I mean, it's better to get that out up front than go to sleep, put on my, my iPhone newfangled headset with my music, doze off and think I'm going shopping the next day because I just closed this deal. It's better to ask a few questions.
At least you'll know what you're going to be buying because the earphones told you.
Exactly. You know what? I would like to buy advertising on that for sure.
Yeah,
High
for
Merit's program, higher Merit to speak. Great.
That sounds no, that sounds great. I do think though that my experience is that most good entrepreneurs are slightly overly optimistic. I think you have to be in that category just to even consider, doing the risk. And it's funny, Elizabeth and I, when we started our business 15 years ago, our law practice, I look back at it now and I say, that was the craziest thing that we've ever done. And if I had experienced then all of the things that I experienced now, I would have said, I'm going back into the workforce. Yeah, but you have to, I think sometimes you do kind of have to have those blinders on and that optimism in order just to try something, right? And so
Yeah.
if you're too down to earth, then you probably won't try anything.
But
right?
I did want to ask you another question. Do you have a success story you can share? I mean, what people coming into your program and maybe their sales are X number a year, what does it look like when they're done with your program implementing your suggestions?
I wish I had a very this is the one thing that you can count on the result of it's very different for everybody, as you can imagine. But recently I was talking to a woman who was actually just in one of my audiences, a keynote audience I did, and I was talking about the relationship between how you buy and how you sell. We were talking a little bit about the mindset piece, and she realized that she was about to present a proposal for a much smaller dollar amount than what would have really served the client. And she contacted me after the event and said, because I was in your audience and you said this one thing, I closed a deal that was $75,000 more than I would have. And it's not because I overcharged the client. It's because I added back in the services that really were going to serve them well, that because of my own issues with money and because I wasn't sure what the right language was. So she was a combination of mindset and the mechanics. I realized that, they got the program that they really needed. I'm able to do the work that I really need to do, and everything worked out. So that was an example of just how quickly it can happen for people, even just in a keynote session where you normally think, oh, we're just going to be inspired and motivated and then we're going to go away. But she actually really got some good, concrete value from that short program, put it into action, kudos to her, and had a great result. Other companies, I'm working with a engineering company, manufacturing company, and I'm training a bunch of engineers how to have sales conversations. And
Good luck with
good luck with that, right?
That's like a whole nother story.
That's a whole nother day.
Yeah.
Everyone, Merit Kahn here, and she's a sales expert and an emotional intelligence expert. We have to take a break now, but where can people find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, so the training company is SELLectsales.com, SELLectsales. And I also have a website that's more for my speaking events, and that's meritkahn.com. So it's MERITKAHN.com. And you can also just shoot me an email at merit@meritkahn.com.
Great to have you with us, Merit. And we will be right back with more Passage to Profit after this. And welcome back, everybody. Passage to Profit. We're just having a whale of a time, and we are hoping that you'll be open to what Kenya Gipson has to say on Power Move. So Kenya, who do we have tonight?
I love that we're having a whale of a time. So just speaking of comedians, I know we have Merit Kahn on today. For Power Move, we're going to talk about Byron Allen. He's a former comedian, and he's also the owner of Allen Media Group. And he just got approved by the FCC to purchase WCOV TV for $28.5 million, but that's not all. He owns 36 stations in 21 markets, including the Weather Channel, the Griot, and Sports TV. And he's invested over $1 billion over the past 2 years to purchase network affiliates. And he's now positioned to be the first Black NFL team owner of the Denver Broncos. And the deal is expected to close before the 2022 NFL season begins. So he's our power move for today, courtesy of Elizabeth.
Yeah, but that got me wondering. So if you've watched this, you know I'm a Seahawks fan, and I love Russell Wilson. He's like the most underappreciated quarterback in the history of the NFL in my mind. Anyway, and he's moving from Seattle because they wouldn't give him any protection on the offensive line. He broke his finger. I think that's why he decided to leave. And he could have had his pick of a lot of different teams. He was even thinking about New York at one time. And he ended up going to the Broncos. And I was like, why would Russell Wilson go to the Broncos? And I'm just wondering if maybe this had something to do with that decision. So
we can only speculate. Maybe
You're
Russell
right.
will tell us. We should get him on the show and ask
we should
him
get his
ourselves.
wife on the show. She's an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah, and she would probably be able to explain the whole
She is an
Russell
entrepreneur.
Wilson thing. So
Yeah, so-
that sounds like a good idea. Kudos to Brian Allen, and it's pretty amazing that he was a comedian too. So maybe he and Merit are onto something here. Maybe we should learn a little comedy,
people
Elizabeth.
tell us we're funny and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, but they're intentionally funny,
and-
and there's a big difference there.
I was just going to say the president of Ukraine was also a former comedian. So, you never know. You could like be leading a nation. Like first you're selling out a comedy club and the next thing you know, you're defending the world against Russia. So I don't know.
Although it's fair to
Well, the
say pretty
skills
much
are the
any
same,
politician
right?
said something
Maybe
funny.
Yeah.
maybe he's trying to make the Russians laugh, and throw up their arms. Who knows?
Yeah.
All right,
Only.
so we're on to Fireside now.
Yes. So for those of you who don't know, Fireside is a video directory of small businesses. And I've been working on it for a while. I was doing interviews for a while to get content. Now I'm onto the website. And I did hire a website person after having had help that like shot down every single website person.
That really wasn't help, was it?
That it really wasn't help. And so I felt really comfortable with this guy from the very beginning. And anyway, so we're moving forward. But what I've been doing now is really looking at websites and looking at the branding on websites, because my website, it's even though it's just like a content holder, it's a directory, right? So it's about everybody else. It's not really about my site, but it still has to have its own brand. And Kenya helped me with the logo and the colors and everything. And so now I'm really looking at high-end websites, like marketing websites. And I'm really noticing a trend that the really good marketers websites like Gary Vee and iHeart, et cetera, they don't use a whole lot of colors. They limit to like 4 colors. And so I'm really trying to learn the branding aspects so I can use them for my site.
So is black a color?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 4 main colors, like for iHeart, red is their pop color and they have black, white, and gray. Gearhart Law, yellow's their pop color, black, white, and gray. Gary Vee, yellow's his pop color, black, white, and gray. So anyway, if you look at other people's websites, they may have a lot more colors, but I think it takes away from the sophistication of the site.
Yeah, very clean sites, all of them. And
Yes.
if you haven't looked into this part of branding, then that's obviously an important piece. So, all right.
And
So
I will say that Kenya also designed the logo for Passage to Profit. So if you like our little light bulb in the circle, so Kenya, I do have to give Kenya a shout out here because she is amazing with creative power. Like she's the most creative person I know. And she's
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it was her idea for this show, and she's had a lot of creative ideas for us along the way.
I couldn't agree more.
Like, okay, so now on to our next presenter. So Chris Ciabarra is with Athena Security, and this is like next generation. So I'm just going to let him explain everything. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you. How's everyone doing today? So what we do is it's a walk-through metal detector next generation. If you look at current technologies, you have to take everything out of your pockets, out of your bags and all that. Our technology, you can just walk right through with your bags. It won't detect your cell phone, won't detect your keys, and will detect if there's a weapon on your body or if it's in a bag. That's the technology that we just released.
So it will detect the dangerous stuff.
Correct.
So
Yes.
how does it do that? How does it distinguish between a weapon and something that's not a weapon? Because there's a
Sure.
lot of different weapons, right?
Absolutely. So we go after mass casualty weapons. Let me just be clear with that. If you're looking at like a plastic, homemade type of weapon, it's not going to detect it. We go after the weapons that have, 6 or more bullets in them, something that can do a lot of casualties. And the way it detects that is multiple sensors. We have technology that can detect the thickness of a metal, the actual, if it's magnetic. The different technologies have more antennas. So if you look at the older technologies, you're looking at a maximum of around 30 antennas. They can't tell the difference, but we have over 300 antennas. That way we can tell the difference between a small object or a large object, and we can tell the thickness of that metal and what type of metal it is, which is really important because a lot of people these days, they have metal in their bodies, right? They have titanium in their bodies, in their spine or skull for replacement parts. And we ignore all that because we can tell the different types of metals that are out there.
That's really great. My mom had an artificial hip, and every time she went through a metal detector at an airport, it was a big deal. She had to explain. They would pull her off to the side and, thought she was hiding a bomb or something in her leg. And so I can see that there would be a lot of extra convenience for this. Is this something that airlines would use, or does it have schools, stores, kind of what is your target market for this?
Absolutely. So we started out with the schools because everyone was getting a shot on TV back in 2018 when I sold my last company. We were kind of bored and we wanted to decide what we wanted to do for our next company. And then after all the kids were dying on TV, we decided to build this. So yeah, it belongs everywhere. We started out with the schools, but now we're already in hospitals. We're in an airport over in Seattle. We're in Fortune 500 companies. A lot of events will do it for gateways into events, stadiums. So you name it, we're pretty much there if you need weapons detection.
So Chris, do people see it? Like, could you hide it so that people didn't really know?
Exactly. So it comes in 2 form factors. One is 2 poles. You can pretty much set them up within 60 seconds, really quickly, easily, or you can build them into a frame so they don't even know it's there, which is the beauty of it. Now, it also has advancements like, has a camera built in. It has different things so we can know who that person is, send an alert to your security team that someone's coming into the building with a weapon. And that way everyone gets alerted right away and you don't have any kind of lapse. A lot of times security guards aren't paid the most and someone can sneak in real easily and people are unaware of what's going on because you don't have like 10 security guards. You have 1 maybe at the front and they're doing 10 different things at once and people can slip by.
So do you have like a voice that goes over the loudspeaker at Macy's saying, attention, attention, there's a serial killer in the store?
Well, it does have voice feedback if you want it on. But
maybe it goes in your headband, right?
This is really valuable because I don't know if you've been to the airport lately, but people are flying again, like they're trying to make up for all the time they lost. And so how could you expect somebody looking at the x-rays of luggage to possibly see everything that's in there? And so, and they've shown on the news where people have missed stuff. And so this is really great because it's another layer of protection.
Exactly. To be honest with you, I actually took a weapon through an airport by accident because I was doing a lot of demos in 2018. My gun actually got through the airport.
Right.
So yeah, it does happen. Obviously, we don't want it to happen, but nothing's foolproof these days. So having a system in there that does the work for you is a lot easier, and it helps with the little mishaps.
So does the system also scans bags and luggage as well as people, right? There's nothing, scans dogs or, whoever, whatever goes through it, right?
I remember when they made us take
Correct.
the cats out of the cat carriers.
Yeah.
Going through
Yeah, we hit some drugs in the cat.
so Merit, do you have a question, Merit?
I mean, I just find it fascinating, and I think, I'm thinking about airports and some of the bigger events that I go to, and I just wonder like what they're actually seeing. I don't know. I have so many questions about this. It's terrifying, and it makes me feel safe. Like, I know I'm never going to be one of those people that's going to bring in something you shouldn't bring in. Like, I'm not going to be like, oh, I forgot I had my gun on me. This is not who I am. But I feel like sad that we're at this point that we need that, but then we're never, you like, that's never going away. Like I'm happy to know that you're doing what you're doing, and I'm happy to know that there are those safety measures, but I don't know. I miss those days when, the big thing I thought about before I went on an airplane was what little dress I was going to wear, and like what the airplane was going to be. And now it's so different.
But I love
Nope.
this because it seems less intrusive. So it maybe will
That's
give
true.
you a little more of the old feeling back if they can use this instead
That's
of like
true.
pulling you aside and feeling you up and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We don't like that. But so the old technology, as I understood it, you can actually see the person's body as they go through and
Those
get
scanners.
scanned. Right.
I
So
was always
you
like,
get
"You
you
really
get like a
wanna look."
complete view of everything. Does your technology do that too, or
It's a little bit different. So if you look at the technologies that are out there, they're using a millimeter wavelength, they're using terahertz, they emit, a little form of what we call radiation. And we wanted to build something that didn't emit radiation. And yeah, we don't do an outline of the actual body itself. We just detect the metals.
see, that's why I stopped flying, because I don't want anybody looking
I don't
in
really
a
care.
security booth at my body.
Seriously. But Kenya, do you have any questions, Kenya?
I do, and I actually have an airport story. So I got pinched coming back from vacation with an iron that my husband bought while on vacation, and had to go to security, and it was like this very embarrassing thing. But I just
An
was
iron?
wondering, an iron like that you iron clothes with. I'm like,
He
why?
bought
I'm like,
that on
why am I
vacation?
carrying this?
Exactly. On vacation and buy an iron? Seriously?
Like, why are we?
That
And then
poor
why
guy.
am I carrying it home? Right. So I was the one that got carried at home, and I got pinched in the airport and had to get pulled to the side. It was so embarrassing. But I was curious to know, do you feel like we're safer now or in the past? Like, I know you can't detect how crazy people are, but I'm just curious to see what you
Well,
think
I
about
think
that.
that's a really good question, because I'm open to all the different things that are happening out there. And it really comes down to technology and what people are interfaced with. And if you look at today, there's more killing games, there's more death on TV. This to young people, their minds haven't been developed yet. And that's why you see, I think, a lot more people going out and doing mass shootings, right? Because they might have a little bit of mental issue, and they're seeing all this stuff on TV or in a video game, and they go do it, right? There's a lot to be said about what you see every day and what you do every day and what's happening today. So yeah, I think there's a lot more crime happening because of the fact what we're experiencing every day.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, people get notoriety when they commit these kinds of crimes, and I guess that's always been the case. But that's part of the motivation, I think, for some people, right, is to be famous for a few minutes.
Like, I've turned on some movies, and it's just from the very first minute, just people shooting each other or monsters or some. It's just like, and they're so graphic. Like, you see the brains flying out and stuff. Like, it's like,
I know.
Where are we as a society?
I guess we like watching that, right?
The whole movie is, well, I
Mhm.
turn them off because the whole movie is just.
Oh, I
that
watch
one
them
long
anyway,
thing.
but
I know
anyway,
you watch 'em.
I happen to be partial to brain splatter, so.
But yeah, so this really is the next generation of technology. Are you going to keep building on this and go for more and more detection type of software, hardware combos?
Absolutely. So a lot of our clients have requests, and we're fulfilling those requests, whether it's connecting into third-party security platforms or whether it's putting a new technology like a bomb threat type of detection into the platform.
So
Well, I think they should use that Apple band to somehow censor
Sleep
thought
thing.
waves and pick out the people who are crazy and going to do something
So-
wild.
So Chris, your market really is like the schools and stuff, but I think that you need people listening and entrepreneurs seeing this on social media and stuff to go to their schools or go to their government officials and say, we want this, right? So
Exactly.
that's why you're bringing this out here. So people need to be a little bit activist to get this in place. I think it's a good thing to have in place.
I agree. I'm with Kenya, though. I kind of do miss the days when you didn't have to worry about all of that stuff. And even if you make it minimally intrusive. It's still intrusive, just knowing that somebody is
Well, so-
looking at your stuff.
I keep telling you, if you hire Merit and get more sales and get more money, we could just do a private jet and miss it all.
There's a solution that's going to appeal to most people. So I'm totally down with that.
I've never been on a private jet. I keep hoping someday.
Anyway, it's we have to take a break, but it's
Okay.
been absolutely great talking with you, Chris. We love your
Thank you.
stuff, and we love to hear
So-
of your success.
Where do people find this? If they want to learn more about it, what's your website?
Sure, it's athena-security.com is where you can find more information, or you can go on YouTube and just type in Athena gun detection and you'll find us.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Listeners, you are listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our special guest today, Merit Kahn, and we will be right back. Welcome back, listeners. You are listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart. If you missed our first two presenters, you really have to go hear them on our podcast, which will be out tomorrow on all the major podcast platforms.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff here, and they were very entertaining too. So, but I'm sure that this presenter is going to be very entertaining because Scott Van Rixel with SpheraPearls has a product called Balls of Fire. Let's hear about it.
Can we even
Hi,
say that on the
so-
radio, by the way?
Well, you can say it, yes, and it's even more humorous when people say, what do you do for a living? And we make balls. So we actually, Balls of Fire is one of the brands that's kind of attached to the hot versions that we do. We do a couple different versions. I won't get into the technical, but spherification goes back to the 30s, and it's more common in the marketplace now as boba or popping boba.
So I'm sorry, I kind of got you off track. These are food additives. Can you explain exactly how people use them?
Yeah, so popping boba is, let's say, the larger pearls that you see in a lot of the Asian boba shop teas. It's a ball that when you bite into it, it has liquid inside. That's the larger format. And the two smaller format, which are Sphera and Balls of Fire, we do from hot sauce all the way to espresso coffee. And they're used in most cases like a condiment to enhance food products, desserts, drinks, cocktails, you name it.
So I could just see our son or like any college group saying, okay, I dare you 5 balls of fire. No, I can do 6. Like, are these really hot? And can you eat them straight or do you normally mix them in?
Well, we have varying degrees of heat. So like our pineapple jalapeno is much more pineapple than jalapeno, and it's got a little heat, but it's relatively mild. All the way to the coup de grace, which is the kiss of death. One pearl is pain inflicting at best, and that would be a mild description. So we do that. Balls of Fire is a wide range. The SpheraPearls don't have any heat at all.
Oh,
So what
Those
kind of
are,
flavors are?
yeah, espresso, maple syrup, pretty much any liquid that has a flavor to it,
so
we put into a pearl.
is the liquid the real liquid, or
Mhm.
is it, so you actually take maple syrup and
Yes,
then
sir.
you put it into a little ball?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it looks like caviar. I mean, that's kind of the impetus of the visual, is it's this beautiful little sphere. Anytime something is a sphere, it reflects or refracts light very differently. So instead of putting Tabasco onto an oyster, imagine if you had 4 little perfectly red, pearlescent pearls that when you bit into the oyster, you got this burst of the Tabasco flavor rather than the saturated thing. And that's really where the pearls come in to their best value, is your whole food experience. If there's a flavor there, by your 3rd or 4th bite, your palate really becomes muted to that flavor.
right.
By isolating the flavor into these little pearls, as you're eating, every once in a while, you're getting that burst of that whatever that particular flavor is. So your palate is always being renewed, and it makes the experience of that flavor much more interesting.
Yeah, when I looked at your website, the first thing I thought of was caviar, and only different caviar, not the real icky caviar, the real stuff, but like fun caviar. And it looked really neat. And so how many different flavors do you have of
I would say infinite, because flavors are never ending, but we have 80 different profiles now. Again, some are more dessert suited, some are more cocktail suited, some are more savory suited. We do ones with terpenes that have mood enhancement or mood adjustment value. You tie those with the eye goggles and you get home.
Right.
It'll be an apple driven hallucinogenic experience.
I was going to ask you if you have cannabis beads yet, but
we do actually. We don't make them at our facility, but we do have a brand called Can VR and Boba that we license to state cannabis producers as another delivery system. I mean, that's kind of where this started. Was I came from the cannabis space after being a chef for a long time, and I had a chocolate company. We went public, left that because it wasn't enjoyable anymore. It wasn't creative. I'm a chef by heart. So running a public company is not my suit and not enjoyable to me. And I wanted to do something that had a high degree of technical difficulty, because everybody's got a gummy, everybody's got a chocolate bar, but in all that came the kind of entrepreneurial thought process of all of popping boba, at least the large format, are made in Taiwan. And it was at the beginning of COVID. Shipping out of Asia was becoming increasingly difficult. Geopolitically, Taiwan is kind of a difficult spot to say, yes, it's got a future for trade with the US based on its interactions with China. And I thought, the ingredient list, the how to get it to here, the where it's made, they're all on the cons. It didn't, as a business model, have a pro.
Well, I mean, but the labor is kind of inexpensive. If you have a lot of people making these little balls, then you have to outsource it.
Well, the making it by hand is actually where the small pearls came in, because there was a lot of top tier restaurants, El Bull and Chefron, who were doing this. You have to have someone in the kitchen who's very good at this. It's not cost effective. It's difficult to do. And you have to throw them out at the end of the day, because the process, if not done in the reverse, goes bad at the end of the night. So that's where we really saw the savory application was, we just finished a batch to send to Tabasco for testing, where we can mass produce something that's very difficult to do on a large scale and have, let's say, more common restaurants, less Charlie Trotter level restaurants, able to have these on as part of their dining experience for the customers in a very cost-effective way.
That sounds great. Kenya, do you have any questions or comments?
I do. I think I'm fascinated by this because I'm a big foodie. I see it's plant-based, right? It's a plant-based product. Just curious, when you were kind of innovating and you were putting this all together, like, was the vision coming from just the boba and the teas, or you just as a chef kind of just felt like people needed to have this overall different food experience?
Well, and to bring up your plant-based, the actual casing, and this technology is not something I came up with. This actually goes back to a patent from the 40s that Unilever had. And originally it was a way to make cherries, because it was cost effective. In between wars, there was an ingredient that was wanted but not easily available. The casing on the Beyond Meat and Beyond Beef and all those companies for their sausages is actually the same type of boba skin that we do, except instead of filling it with plant-based meat, we fill it with liquids. So I just want to kind of point out where that plant-based component comes in. The other part of it is that it wasn't so much, there's the one part, let's replace what's in the market that is hard to get from a country that's probably progressively become difficult to do business with. And frankly, the ingredient list coming out of those Asian products is not something that a product principally consumed by kids I was happy with as a dad. Corn syrup, artificial flavor, artificial color are not three things that should be given to kids. We don't use any of those.
Not your favorite ingredients,
Well,
but
when you bring up kids. Can I?
yeah, sure. And then we need to ask Merit.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make a real quick comment about kids.
Mhm.
Like this is like taking away like the sticky syrup in the hair and all over the face and everything. If you could just give them these to put on their pancakes instead of pouring, right?
That's the maple syrup. Was my daughter had a bunch of her friends over for breakfast, and my daughter loves waffles, but she doesn't like them to get soggy. So I did the pearls with maple inside. So as you're eating it, you get that pop of the maple flavor, the maple syrup. And that sensation of popping there's a whole psychology behind why humans find that. You can't leave bubble wrap on a counter, and whether they're 3 years old or 80 years old, they want that sensation. Dr. Pimple Popper, why anyone wants to watch that is beyond me. But
is it still even on? Yeah. I don't know. Merit, what do you have to say about all of this?
Yeah.
I've been thinking the whole time about the whole kid thing. I think this is opening up a whole new opportunity of how parents can punish kids for being bad. It's like spinach pearls and like all the other like do that. You don't call me, when you're supposed to. 2 spinach pearls for you.
And you get the popping experience that even makes it worse.
Nothing worse than spinach other than bursting spinach.
That's perfect.
Anyway,
instead of soap in the mouth, sriracha.
Exactly.
I was going to say you could hide a nasty one in their favorite food if they were eating too much of it.
And we just had the fiery food show, and the sriracha is a funny thing because the coup de grace is frankly violently hot. And when you put it in your mouth, you don't initially get the heat, but when you burst that little tiny 6 millimeter pearl, it's like you kick the hornet's nest with your tongue. And that's kind of the fun of it is that surprise of flavor.
Yeah. Well, I personally would never try something like that. Whenever I eat something hot, my bald spot starts to sweat. So and that's very unattractive from many perspectives. But Scott, it's been great having you on the show.
Thank you.
Where can you find your SpheraPearls?
It's actually at SpheraPearls.com, which is SpheraPearls.com.
We're going to take a break here. We'll be right back with more Passage to Profit right after this. And welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart and our special guest, Merit Kahn. What a show. It was just off the charts outstanding, don't you think?
I think it was very entertaining. There was a lot of humor. And of course, Merit Kahn, who was our guest, is a comedian as well as has many other skills. And you can find her at SELLectsales.com, SELLECT sales.com. So SELLect has 2 L's in it because she's helping you sell.
So
right?
she'll help you sell and tickle your funny bone at the same time.
Right. Or you can find her on her website, meritkahn.com, MERITKAHN.com. So I really enjoyed her segment. And
I'm gonna ask people if they're open.
Yes.
To this. Are you open to being on Passage to Profit?
Yes. And then we had Chris Ciabarra with AthenaSecurity.com. That's Athena, ATHENA dash security.com. And really look at what he's doing on his website and go tell your local politicians that you want this at your airport, your schools, wherever you need to detect a gun.
Yeah, it has 300 sensors instead of 30. So it's 10 times better.
It's less obtrusive, but it's also an extra layer of security. I mean, I think this is just fantastic, pushing the envelope forward constantly, very innovative.
And the guards won't see an outline of your body.
If they want to look, God help them. Anyway, and then we had Scott Van Rixel with SpheraPearls. So little super strong, tasty pearls that you add to your food. And watch out for the kiss of death one, because that could kill you. No,
He's perfected the art of mouth bursting food.
yes. So, and you can find those at SPHERA pearls.com. So there's little spheres. So that's a Sphera. So SpheraPearls.com. And if you missed any of the show, of course, our podcast is out tomorrow.
Yep. So before we sign off, I would like to ask our guest, Merit Kahn, if she has any final words for our audience.
I would just say, I don't know, I'm a speaker. Final words. I really enjoyed like just being part of this conversation. I think it's always interesting when you get a number of different entrepreneurs together to have conversations about interesting, relevant things. And, you know, it's as long as we're all open-minded and open to what, you know, may come next. I guess the most important thing is just making sure you protect all the ideas that you have and before you share them, maybe.
That
Yeah,
sounds
that's a
great.
good one, yeah.
So Kenya, we're open to your comments now.
Yeah, so today's show was all about sales, sriracha, and security, right? And we all got to laugh and have a good time. So if you want to learn and laugh, tune into Passage to Profit. That's all I got.
Oh,
Excellent.
that's pretty good.
You always do such a great summary.
You're a good wrapper-upper, no doubt. So, but before we sign off, I'd like to remind our audience that while believed correct, this is not legal advice, and that if you do have any IP issues, you should take them up with an intellectual property professional. So, and before we go, I'd like to thank our producer, Noah Fleischman, our program coordinator, Alicia Morrissey, and our video editor, Chatterboss. And don't forget to like us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And this is Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart signing off, and we'll be back next week with another fascinating episode of Passage to Profit.